Similarly, I appreciate the feedback in the chat. If that's easier, we'll take ideas any way we can get them.
This is John Shiaki again. I was just going to say that it's a very big scope that we're trying to tackle. And so I think, if not a portion of the workshop or the time in May, as well as this effort in general, needs to be just defining the scope and then being very strict and very disciplined in sticking to that scope, or to the process of how we will be going through the scope as it kind of becomes more and more complex. So I like the idea of including things like state-funded projects, or university projects. But is that the primary scope? And even within federal data, what is the primary scope?
I think John, I think that's honestly the main thing that I feel like I've learned is how difficult it is to describe the scope, as long as all of these communities are understand the kind of the main problem differently. And so I'm thinking of like defining scope to some degree also means acknowledging those things that are outside of scope. And I think state and local data is an easy thing to say. It's either in scope or out of scope, but even the question of sort of what constitutes data, and right, like as I think everyone here knows, right, data rescue events are concerned both with sort of web pages and also things that we would think of as data sets. And as we've been talking with folks in federal agencies, I think the question of what is a data set, what is a data collection, what's the kind of unit of or sort of amount of context necessary to make data usable. And I think that's it sounds like what Aaron was finding with the repositories locally, is that a lot of the work they do is in adding value, putting time in that potentially federal agencies aren't putting in or don't have time to put into contextualizing data and making affiliated documentation. And I think it's like the question of scope becomes meaningful at the level of like, right, giant federal versus state versus local, but also at the level of how big is a data set before you're like, I mean, how many parts do you constitute? And you say, this is the data. This is the thing that I save and back up. And I've just been kind of shocked at how tricky that is. Even like what's in scope for a particular data set or a particular data source, or, one record in data.gov, that like how much do you need to get before you have that backed up if the record is pointing to an interactive data visualization tool representing terabytes of data? It's a tricky thing. Ooh, Steve Diggs asks we have, so the question about are down in the trenches data producers and data users from different domains involved at this early stage of the effort? I just like looking over to Bethany, because I think that's a question that she has. Bethany, the head of the program in environmental humanities, has kind of, as a co-owner of this project, keeps us honest in terms of thinking through who is using this data and who needs it. And there are people coming to the meeting who, we have a couple scientists, just straight up research scientists. I think, is that true? We definitely have data producers who are like truly create data as part of the federal government. Those people are coming, and we've been having conversations with them. And all of the data rescue events. Oh yeah, and then UCS, the Union of Concerned Scientists, have been a great partner with us, and we're going with them to AGS, which is American Geophysical Union. It's the biggest meeting of all the Earth Sciences meetings. And AAAS, which is the American Academy for the Advancement of Science. We're also going to hear from them and talk with them. And also probably to do data rescue events, whatever data rescue events look like at that point. It is. Another piece, just talking about the trenches, is that Bethany, we can say, right? Yeah. Bethany has a grant from the National Geographic. The Committee for Research on Exploration from National Geographic, as part of Data Refuge, to continue the work of the storytellers. And we will continue to ensure that the storytelling work that they've been doing, connecting particular data sets that are produced by the federal government with city agencies who use that data to make decisions that affect people's lives, and those three players in the data, the life of data, that will remain part of the project. And I think it's part of the reason that Data Refuge as a project has been able to sort of see across a bunch of different communities is because we have stayed really close to the people who need to use the data and the people whose lives are affected by them, and the people who actually create the data. Our partnership with Pete DiCarlo at Drexel, who's an atmospheric scientist, has been one of the beginnings of this project for us. Ooh, Steve would like to speak. You can unmute yourself.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm at Scripps Institution of Oceanography, and we do a lot of work in climate, as you might imagine, in climate science. And so right at the heart of the issue, when the new administration came in, we were looking at the cabinet level appointees to see how friendly they were to climate. Probably is way more entertaining if I show my face, right? All right, so here I am. Anyway, so what a lot of people think has to do with climate is if you look at the last climate report, it has a lot of temperatures over land. And the oceanographic community would like to say that in the workaday world of actual under the water ocean sciences is that all the heat and even the carbon that goes to drive ocean acidification, which is at the heart of these climate issues, is under the water. And to date, I have not seen any of the Data Refuge efforts go after subsurface data that actual scientists use on a day-to-day basis. In other words, at the heart of the issue, I think, for Data Refuge is if something happens because of a hostile administration, will scientists be able to continue the important work of discerning climate signals? The answer to that right now with what's been captured is no. Those data reside in a network of academic institutions, not in data.gov in any way. We're working to get them in with John at the California Digital Library at the UCSD. But the thing I wanted to say is that most of the climate signal, if you want to go to climate and you're looking out for the planet, you have to go about 4 or 5 kilometers down in the ocean to see tiny micro changes in both the carbon levels in the ocean, the sequestered carbon, as well as micro Celsius changes in the abyssal ocean. Those data are in only 3 or 4 places. One of those places was recently defunded by Department of Energy, and it had nothing to do with Trump. The reason I say that is because any administration can take its eye off the ball. Now, an administration that will volitionally take its eye off the ball or go in the opposite direction is even more dangerous, and of course, we're alarmed here. Our thing that we'd like to connect to Data Refuge is an institutional level that is a workaday world scientist with the data in our repositories. We need to connect with Data Refuge in a way that's useful and helps guide the effort so that those data are also captured and go into this constellation of data that will be used should the worst occur at the .gov level. And we actually have a use case where at the .gov level, the Carbon Ocean Data Center will be gone after September 17th of this year. And that was a DOE funding mid-level program manager thing that could happen, but with a person at the head of that cabinet, such as our new Secretary of Energy, that could be pervasive. I mean, that could happen all the time. So we really need to connect the academic community that has things that are outside of the .gov realm to the Data Refuge effort so that these data get captured in context with full metadata and let the information and library science people do their best to help us ensure that we come along with this effort.
Thank you so much for bringing that. I'm thank you so much for bringing that, all of those points forward. I think that's hugely, hugely important. And I've been so thrilled to see what's happening at UCSD. I think the work that you all are doing there to connect this exactly what you just described is like absolutely at the heart of what we need to be doing. And I also think it does come back to this question of sort of scope. The range of challenges that we're facing is so huge that we really, really need to be constantly inviting voices to the table to help us understand what the scope is and can be, and sort of how can we address the pieces we absolutely need to address as a community together. It's just like, it's mad difficult. And I think, and just thank you for calling attention to that piece of it that we haven't been talking about.
Sure.
I mean, yeah, we're at the almost 250 mark. Be happy to facilitate any conversations or any questions that others have. It's been really enlightening and interesting. We're going to save everything from it. But is there any last comments, suggestions, questions? Bethany has been taking furious notes, and that will be part of the record of this event. All right. Well, thank you.
Fill out the survey.
Please take a moment to fill out the survey when your time permits. We would love it. We need it, and share it with others. And thank you again. Thank you so very much. We appreciate it.